Hello and welcome to Zerocarbonista Series 6, The Cow in the Room. I'm Ian Collins. This is your number one go-to environment-based podcast. If it's green, it's in. And this is twice in one day for us, Dale.
Yeah, we just had a chat on your radio show, didn't we? I have to say I really enjoyed it. You gave me room to let fly on a couple of issues.
Well, I mean, that's what it's all about, really, because previously we had a guy on who was really annoyed with you. You know, he thought you had subsidies coming out your ear holes. He talked about invented data, selective data, and essentially said that the carbon zero, I'm paraphrasing here, the net zero experiment was over. Today is a grieving day, he said.
But not for him by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
But look, the subsidy thing is really interesting because we did challenge somebody on social media a couple of weeks ago who said basically I wasn't telling the truth when I said we've not had any subsidies, and he cut and pasted or quoted from our accounts, and I had to point out to him that although in our accounts it said government subsidy 123 million a couple of years ago, it wasn't a subsidy to us, it was a subsidy to our customers because the government knocked money off everybody's energy bill in that year. And we were the handlers of it, like we handle VAT. We charge it, we give it to the government. Only this time it came from the government and it went to our customers. So it wasn't money for us, and we had to point that out. And I think he accepts that now. But unfortunately, it says the word subsidy in the accounts, and the people that are looking for that stuff, they're like, whoa, there it is.
So no one ever said, here's £180 million, go build some windmills, big boy. No one ever said that.
No, that's right. As I said on the show, amount of subsidies we've had is net zero.
Yeah, you did, yes. I would say if you listen to every person that said, oh, yeah, you've definitely had subsidies, I mean, it would be about £17 trillion, apparently, because the figure just gets bigger. The accusation gets bigger every time somebody mentions it.
Yes.
But the facts don't actually change every time somebody mentions it.
No, they don't.
And in fact, it's even worth mentioning, because we're going to come to your diary, because it's been an interesting diary. But should we just slot in here right wing nut, because it's relevant to the man who we were talking to and others who said that referenced Tony Blair, who'd had this kind of curious, weird bit of timing 2 days before local elections. The former leader of the very party he's still a member of and supports comes out with this kind of very cloudy, clearly unhelpful, but really weird statement about, this whole journey to net zero is kind of way off, and it ain't going to work, basically.
Yeah, I mean, and the detail of what he said was just kind of wrong. He said net zero policies were irrational, and then went on to say a whole bunch of irrational things and wrong things. Like, he said we need more fossil fuels because the demand in China is increasing. Well, in fact, that's going to peak. It already peaked, or it's going to peak this year. So that's a non-issue. He said that we need less green energy and more focus on carbon capture, which, when you think about it, is to say what we should do less of the stuff that avoids carbon emissions and do more of the stuff that tries to clean it up afterwards.
Yeah,
it's hideously expensive. Carbon capture and storage doesn't work at scale anywhere in the world. So that's the other problem with it. It's not actually something we can rely on. And at the same time, prevention is always cheaper, faster, and easier than cure. So he made no sense there. He said we need more big nuclear.
Yeah.
We can't wait for that. We haven't got the time for that. It takes 10 years to plan, 10 years to build, and another 10 years to break even on a carbon footprint basis. And he also said we need small nuclear, and there are none existing anywhere in the world. And the industry won't talk about the cost of them. They will be more expensive than big nuclear, which is the most expensive electricity we've ever had. So none of this stuff from Tony Blair made any actual sense. I don't know what on earth he was thinking of, jumping in and saying everything's wrong, stop the green energy, invest in carbon capture and storage, except, and this does link to what you're saying about subsidies, except it emerged, and it wasn't news, but it emerged in the context that in 2018, he got £9 million from a Saudi company, Saudi obviously being a big oil producer. And when you look at it, who benefits from turning down the green energy program and investing in carbon capture to clean up the burning of fossil fuels? It's the people that sell fossil fuels. And you've got to, what on earth is he thinking? And of course, well, it's unfortunate, but you can't forget Iraq, can you? Right? This is the guy that said, right, there's a dossier of evidence. Saddam Hussein has got weapons that can hit us within 45 minutes, weapons of mass destruction. And actually, it turned out to be bullshit, like carbon capture and storage, big and small nukes is all bullshit. It's a distraction. I can't believe he popped back up to share this with us.
Let's look at your diary. Been a busy diary this week. As we
Yeah.
alluded to and teased last week, we responded to Nigel Farage being on the Today programme. And the very next day, which was the day after we recorded that episode, you were going on, and in some respects, to counter some of what he said. How did that go?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like an age ago. It was only a week ago. I was on stupidly early. I had to get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how people do that. The world looks like a very different place to me at that time. It really does. I'm not sure I like it. But a couple of hours later, I mean, I had a good chat about breaking the link, and the very important fact, or what Farage is saying, is wrong. When he says green energy is pushing up our bills, it's completely untrue. It's fossil fuels pushing up our bills, and in particular, the fact that we allow the price of fossil fuel gas to set the price of the wind and sun. So I just went on the show to talk about that. The presenter really got it, and a couple of hours later, he put it to Ed Miliband, who was on the show, and Ed said, look, he agrees with me completely. I think he said I was talking about something different. The presenter was having none of that. He went back and said, no, he wasn't. He was talking about this. And actually, why don't you break the link? Ed was saying, yeah, he's right. We do need to break the link. But then went on to say, actually, and I think it's in a question later, the only way to do it, or the best way to do it, is to wait until 2030, which I think is completely wrong. I think it's a mistake. There's tens of billions loaded onto our energy bills in the meantime. And come 2030, gas won't be off the grid. According to NESO, the grid operator, the system operator, they say it'll be between 15 and 50% on the grid by then. The average of that is 30%. So let's just say we'll still have a third of the grid gas by 2030, still setting the price for everything else. That can't be right.
Another thing that happened this week, Telegraph, in response to your post supporting the Irish rock band Kneecap, there was a big issue around this band. Most people probably weren't familiar with them until this moment. In their lyrics, they said something about killing MPs. There was a right hullabaloo. Everybody lost their mind about it, and people are trying to cancel them now. You've written about it, and then the Telegraph wrote about you.
Well, it happened on the same day as the Today program. It's been a really busy week. It feels like a month, but it was later on that Friday that I got a message saying, look, there's a real kind of hot potato here from the Telegraph asking for a statement. It was about 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. And I was just sat outside a wine bar in London about to have a drink. And basically what happened is Kneecap said some stuff about Palestine a couple of weeks ago. Coachella tried to shut them down for it, and I just wrote on social media that I supported what they were saying. It was about Palestine, and it was right to speak out. What the Telegraph did was really sneaky. My post went out earlier last week. 3 hours later, they broke a story about a police investigation for something that happened some months ago, which I didn't know about. But they wrote up the story as if I did know about it. They said I supported them despite the fact there was a police investigation into them shouting "Up Hamas" from stage. Completely fake. We wrote a statement to that effect, got it to them by 5 o'clock. They had a 9 p.m. deadline. They didn't use it. It was an incredible piece of cynical journalism, the way that they broke the story and then said to me, hey, look at this, and then said I knew about it when I made the statement, and they're not taking my statement that corrected the picture, all of that stuff. Well, the end result today is they've apologized in their newspaper, which is a super rare thing to do. They've carried a statement from me saying, actually, the story here is genocide, Israeli genocide on the Palestinian people. And whenever you speak up, certainly it happens to me, whenever I speak up for Palestinian people, for human rights, for international law, I get accused of supporting terrorists. The Telegraph apologized in print, online. They're paying substantial damages to the people of Gaza as we speak. Wow. The whole thing shouldn't have happened. And in the whole Hamasgate saga, because this began over a year ago, as you probably know, and I've been having to force people to apologize and settle all that kind of stuff. It's 8-0. The running total is 8-0, and there are 2 outstanding cases. But guys, please, this is to anybody that wants to attack me for supporting Palestine. Just keep it clean, right? Supporting Palestine is not supporting terrorism. It's supporting international law. The terrorists in this case are Israel. They've killed and injured over 100,000 people. They're starving a population of millions of people, pushed them out of their homes, destroyed the entire territory. What they're doing is incredible. Any other country on the planet, we would call it genocide. That's what we need to do.
And interesting that the Telegraph had the opportunity to put that comment in from you and chose not to. That's just called shit journalism. But thank God for the apology. Just another point here. Somebody who often disagrees with you is Richard Tice. of course. But actually, who is, of course, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, but actually agreed with you on something this week.
He did, yeah. It was lovely because I'm trying to think what it was now. He said, it's zonal pricing. I mean, tell you what, it's been a busy week. Zonal pricing has been in the news. The idea of breaking the UK into, 12 or 9 different regions and having a different price in every region and making each region trade with each other to balance the national grid, which happens now. And he wrote, rare event, I agree with David Vince about zonal pricing. This is Red Ed's mad idea. And I wrote back and said, it's great that we agree zonal pricing is mad, but it's not Ed's idea. It's a conservative idea that they inherited from the last government. And all Ed said on the Today program was, we're looking at it and we'll consider it. I mean, that was it. But it's such a mad scheme, I can't see it going ahead. So me and Richard Tice, we almost agreed. We half agreed.
Yeah. I think I think agrees with nationalising British Steel. So
that's good. Well, there you go.
So I mean, you'll be in the Reform Party soon, Dale.
They'll join my party. Look, I think Richard Tice is not a bad man. If I met him, I'm sure I'd find even more things I agreed with him about, but plenty of things that I don't and we don't agree about, and that's fine. That's how the world works, right? We don't have to be in trenches, refusing to talk to each other.
Indeed. Another big thing happening this week, of course, it's the last home league game of the season for Forest Green Rovers, your club.
Yeah, and there's an election today. Let's not forget that.
There is, yeah, as we record this. So when this goes out, on the nose, 8 a.m. Friday morning, we'll have a rough idea of where it's going.
As long as you're not on holiday, right?
As long as you're not on holiday.
No, you, not me.
Oh, me? Yeah, no, I'm not on holiday.
I find the studio when I'm on holiday. Anyway, enough of the ribbing.
But you try to find anything in Bulgaria.
Well, that's fair. You've found a fan of the podcast. I mean, come on.
I've more than a fan. I'd say a super fan. In fact, I might go as far as say a stalker.
Yeah, so a big by-election today, and some council elections and stuff like that. Of course, Reform are hoping to do well, but they're doing it on the back of lies, right? To say that green energy is putting up bills. Ed Miliband's got a zonal plan, which he doesn't. Net zero is costing us money we can't afford. All of this stuff is a bit fake. We've got a lovely story, op-ed about Farage, and a lovely cartoon going out in a couple of days, which makes the link between Brexit and something that I'm calling Nexit, which is Farage's sequel to Brexit, which is to take Britain out of net zero. Just calling it Nexit for fun. We'll see if it sticks.
Yeah. So Forest Green Rovers, Saturday. It's been a pretty tasty season, though, I'd say.
It's been all right, isn't it? We're third. We've got one home game in the playoffs standing between us and Wembley. I'm very hopeful that we'll get to Wembley. I think we won our last 3 games. We've got momentum and that kind of stuff. We've got a good team, good manager. I think we're in with a real shout of being back in the Football League next season.
Let's talk solar panels, because that's something we talked about this afternoon on the radio show. That was a news that broke today, that every new home, this is in England to start with, by 2027, every new home that's built must have solar panels on it.
Yeah, and it's a brilliant move. It's not a revolutionary idea, of course. It's been around for a long time. Labour brought in this process to create a standard for new homes that included solar, called the Zerocarbon Home Standard. And one of the things Cameron did nearly 10 years ago was just to bin it. When he had that moment when he said he was going to cut the green crap, and he banned onshore wind, he crushed this new home standard that builders were ready to deliver on. They'd been working on it for years. So what Ed Miliband has done today is to bring back a part of it, the easy part, which is like, let's put solar on people's roofs. There are estimates that it will save about £1,000 a year for the new homeowner and pay for itself in about 4 years. We're talking about a £3,000 cost or something, between 3 and 4. It depends whether it's detached or semi-detached, whatever it is. But it's a blindingly brilliant thing to do. It should have been done a long time ago. The cost of Cameron's crushing of these standards 10 years ago has been £15 billion of higher energy bills for all new homes built in the last decade. I mean, we're talking really big sums of money here. Labour have gone and done this, resurrected the solar part. I think they need to go further, resurrect the whole zero carbon home standard. It's a bit of a mouthful, because a house built to this standard will have virtually no bills at all, no energy bills at all, which I think is a wonderful thing to have. But they need to go further again. We published a report a few months ago, Rooftop Revolution. It shows 17 million homes suitable in Britain for solar. We need a retrofit program, I think funded and controlled by Great British Energy. I think it's a perfect opportunity. We can create a massive, massive amount of electricity in our country from our homes. the deepest level of the grid where we use energy is the best place to make it. We won't have grid delays. It would be the equivalent of an absolutely ginormous solar farm, but distributed all around the country. Be a great idea. I've been lobbying Labour to run with that. I'm not sure they will, but I won't stop.
Here's something that's just happened, Dale. Never has it happened before, I think, in the history of this podcast, or maybe sometimes. But we've been recording for about 17 minutes so far, and we haven't done a single story that's on our list of things to talk about.
On our list, you're right, but we have covered a lot of news, like the solar news today, the Palestinian thing from last week with the Telegraph. I mean, I've just been in the news a lot. It's my fault.
Well, we have got a lot of questions, though. Having said that,
well, I love the questions, so I think we should skip the rest of the news agenda.
Let's do the questions. It's not really a question, but it's just a point, Dale, that Gary Economics, who's a guy that's become an incredibly sought-after economic voice because he has a very different angle from, if you like, conventional square mile sort of territory. He's not your average. He's not your average financial geek, and some of what he says is not conventional, and that's why some people like him. Apparently, he's adopted your phrase. That we tax income made with hands more than we tax wealth made by wealth. So the fact that Gary, who's got an enormous following, is picking up on the lingo is good.
Yeah, it is good. It's not quite identical, because I say we tax money made with a pair of hands at a higher rate than we tax money made with money. He just uses wealth made with wealth. But
well, he needs to rethink this, then, doesn't he? Frankly,
he does.
I take back everything I said about the man.
He needs to get to the original, because I think it's more clear, it's more simple, it's more everyday.
It is.
Money made with money. Come on.
One from C-Sense on X, who says the Today programme about breaking the link. Ed Miliband agreed with you about gas prices setting price of electricity, but said we would break the link by 2030. We did just reference this, of course. Ed Miliband just said on the same programme that to unlink electricity from gas prices, you need to go fully renewable by 2030. But did you say you could unlink them before that in another way?
Yeah, so Ed and Desna's thinking is that if there's no gas on the grid, then we broke the link. It's a very extreme way to break the link, to wait it out. But I did say on the show that we could do it now. So we're producing what we call the Haynes Manual of breaking the link, because civil servants have said it can't be done, or it's difficult rather, and that's putting Desnes off. So we're 2 weeks away from publishing this small study into how to change the rules so that people get paid what they bid. When a wind generated bids 5p, it gets paid 5p. When gas is 10p, it doesn't matter. A very simple thing. So yes, I did say it, and we're going to show how it gets done.
Well, Owen on LinkedIn, similar point connected to this, is Dale, to be clear, it's purely a political decision, surely. Is there some contractual reason that it can't be delinked right now?
I don't believe there is. I believe there's no reason. My energy team, they're all experts in the energy market. They say the only thing we'd have to do is phase it in over 18 months, because people buy power in advance and they would need to adjust their positions to allow for the fact that this new change is coming. You can do that over an 18-month period.
Here's one from Alistair on X, who says, following Saturday's match against Oldham, Forest Green Rovers 1, Butchers 0. How do you stop players eating the pitch?
That's funny. Actually, I've got a plan to make them eat the pitch. I've got a plan to make everybody eat grass.
Who's been eating the pitch? Well, that's true. I was going to say, maybe you're doing it through the players. Get them to eat the pitch after a win.
And we've had some great news on that front. Actually, you know, we're looking at the nutrients that we're finding in grass, and it's incredible. Grass is like a superfood. Up until now, you need 4 stomachs to digest it. That's the only drawback. But we've cracked that problem, and we're going to bring grass to a supermarket and a cafe and a football club near you very soon.
Carol on X says, so you don't think we should have control over immigration then? Are you housing any? Her question was reference a post reacting to Nigel Farage's speech that we should have the right to discriminate who comes to our country.
Well, I've never said we shouldn't control immigration or decide who comes to our country. I mean, we already do. I don't know why Farage is saying that, because we already do that. So, you know, I don't understand it.
There you go. Should we do some X-rated corner ones?
Yeah, let's do it.
For the uninitiated, these are people who aren't necessarily fans of Dale Vince. This comes from Jose on X. Reference the Oldham Butchers post, Forest Green 1, Butchers 0. Everything about your club is awful.
I just need to say, no way, Jose.
Yeah, that's all you needed to say as well.
And 1-0.
and 1-0. Paul Atkins referenced China sprinting ahead with energy development. Net zero will kill plant life, you juvenile delinquent. Because plants need CO2s, and if we're going to get rid of them all, they all die. That seems to be the logic that constantly comes through on this, Dale. Can you explain?
Yeah. It's the illogic, isn't it? It's one of those incredibly stupid things. No offense to the listener, but it's an incredibly stupid thing to say. Nobody's talking about taking all the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Right now, we have record amounts of it. It hasn't been this high for hundreds of thousands of years. And when it was much lower, hundreds of thousands of years ago, we had an abundance of plant life. So there's no connection here. We aren't going to be killing plant life on the planet by getting carbon levels down in order to keep the temperature down and keep the weather livable.
This comes from Sam Branton on Facebook. Reference the "we can reach 100% energy from solar and wind" post. Sam, he's not particularly complimentary, Dale. You ready for this?
Yeah, braced.
He says, "You, sir, are a complete bellend. What utter lies. Are you knowingly lying to people or just really, really thick? Please enlighten us as how wind turbines and solar panels are recycled. Also, why the weird scarf? How many COVID jabs you had?"
Okay.
I don't understand what's with the COVID jab comment. Is that connected to
Well,
your scarf or your windmills?
or my thinking, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's all a bit random, isn't it? And what he's done there is pivot from the idea that we can have 100% green energy on the grid to
yeah.
recycled. I mean, what's recycling of a windmill got to do with the fact that we can power the grid 100% with the wind and sun? I don't understand. I think the man's confused.
Maybe he's a cock. And Kelly Jane Keane on X referenced the post where you said Nigel Farage is missing the point on net zero. GDP growth for who, she says. Who benefits from that?
Well, I got to say, GDP growth benefits everybody that lives in the country. Unfortunately, it also benefits some tax exiles like Jim Ratcliffe, who moved himself to Monaco to save tax. He's just an example. Quite a few people do it. The super rich do it, and we ought to shut that down. But look, GDP, that's our economy. If you live in our country and work in our country, the bigger the economy, the better for all of us.
There it is. Dale, we're done. You can go and enjoy the sun in your pants.
I'll walk off screen now so you can see them.
That's what would happen in an old Carry On film, isn't it? It's exactly what Sid James might do in that moment, I would imagine. Dale, we'll speak in a week.
All right. I'll see you then.
Don't forget, of course, you can follow Dale on social media, twitter.com/DaleVince, also facebook.com/DaleVince, on LinkedIn and TikTok too.